Welcome to the Rock is George podcast. I'm your host, George Dionne, and this is episode 54. Thank you for tuning into the Rock is George podcast on your favorite podcasting platform, at YouTube or at knac.com. You can also check us out at rockisgeorge.com. For episode 54, my guest is Dan Baune of the band Devil's Train. They call themselves the European answer to Black Label Society and compare their sound to the Dead Daisies and Blackstone Cherry as well. Devil's Train has been around for a little bit, but they've recently restructured and reformed. They have a fantastic new album on the way called Ashes and Bones. It's out on June 24th. So here's Dan Baune of Devil's Train to tell you all about it. If I knew absolutely nothing about Devil's Train, how would you describe the band's music to me?
In 3 sentences or something, right? Well, I would say it's blues rock, but it's very heavy blues rock, you know? I think there's a lot of bands these days that have a certain tinge of nostalgia, 80s nostalgia perhaps, but they all lean more towards kind of melodic rock and glam and that kind of thing. And Devil's Train is filthier than that, you know? Devil's Train is a bit dirty, a bit sleazy, and has a lot of blues in there, a lot of, you know, Thin Lizzy and Skinner and that kind of stuff, you know.
I absolutely agree with that, and it's evident on your upcoming album, Ashes and Bones. It's out June 24th on Rock of Angels Records. Now, you and Jens Becker from Gravedigger are new to the group, so how did you two get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got involved first, obviously, because it's more or less Leah's band. Leah's the singer. He founded it back in 2012. Since his old guitar player left, he was looking for a new writing partner. He was looking for someone to write a bunch of new tunes with. And that was me, essentially. He and I have been on the same label for many years, friends for many years. And I moved back to Germany at the beginning of 2020, at a month before the pandemic, right? So we had a lot of time in 2020 to get together and write this record, and we did. And then Jens came on board a little later in 2021 when we were recording the record. You know, initially we wanted Jari to do it, who's the original Devil's Train bass player, but he had a lot of other commitments. He was playing bass on a bunch of records. He's in this band called Master Plan and stuff. So he was too busy kind of to do it. So Jens kind of jumped in last minute and did a fantastic job, and I'm really stoked to have him on board, you know.
What is sort of the songwriting process between Devil's Train? Because you and Jens are new and RD and Jorg are established. So how does this work putting this particular album together?
Yeah, man, like kind of I was sort of hinting at it, right? So Leah is the singer. We write everything together in the sense that he has great vision and he has a lot of ideas floating around his head and floating around his phone, right? But he's not the kind of guy, like, he doesn't play piano or guitar or anything. He's not a studied musician in that sense. He's a singer, you know, and a very heartfelt singer, but he's an autodidact, you know. He's taught himself how to do it and all that. So that's where I come in, right? I play all these instruments and I'm studied and I know I know what chords are and stuff. So, you know, he's a broad picture kind of guy. I'm a details kind of guy. And so this album's kind of, some songs are ideas of his that we developed together. Some songs are songs that I wrote the music and he pretty much just came in and wrote the lyrics. And some songs are very, very collaborative. They kind of happened with the two of us sending stuff back and forth and chatting and seeing each other and kind of coming up with ideas on the spot. And then Jens and Jorg come in a little later on when it's time to sort of, you know, when we have the structures of the songs and the keys and tempos and stuff, we know what works with the vocals. We do a proper pre-production, you know. And then the others come in and we jam it out and we get the grooves right and we get all the parts right. And then we go in and record. It's rock and roll, you know, it's fairly simple.
So you mentioned before that Devil's Train is a little more sleazier and dirtier than your average blues rock band from the late 80s, early 90s. And that's kind of evident in your music video for The Devil in the Blues. It takes place in a strip club / gambling hall. This must have been a fun video to make.
Yeah, I mean they're all fun to make, right? They're all fun to make. No, absolutely. Yeah, we have a great time when we go out and do band stuff just because, it is not the 80s anymore. You don't get to do it all the time, let's say. So whenever we do have band time, the four of us, we really do enjoy it and enjoy each other's company and hanging out and having fun.
Was this a real strip club that this took place in?
Yeah, absolutely. But it was daytime. It was before hours, right? It's before they open. So we got to use the place in the day, and we brought in some people, and yeah, it had to kind of go pretty quickly because there was a deadline at the end of the day. It was not open ended. Yeah,
Paying customers come in at 2, get out.
exactly, pretty much. Yeah.
Another song that you've released ahead of the album's release is Ashes and Bones. That one's a little more cinematic, little Old West feel to
Mhm.
it. You think that plays well to the song itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that song really lent itself towards that kind of video, and it was a doable thing, and that's why we went for it. We had a killer location, killer crew to do that one. And I personally, I love that song. It's the title song of the album. It's a bit of a deeper song. There's lots of sort of easier, fun party rock songs, let's say, on the album, but this is a bit more of a more heartfelt one, a little deeper, a little more meaningful.
And you released a cover song of Cameo's Word Up. And I was in a cover band. We covered that one. The girls go
Cool.
crazy for that song. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that makes sense for this band.
Yeah, man, that one was so fun. It's kind of, we like to try a bunch of stuff covers wise, usually just for fun in the studio. And it's sort of an easy way to get a session going. It's not so, when you're doing your own stuff, it can kind of be, it's important to you. So it can kind of be a little stressful. So it's great to set up your drum tone or whatever with doing a cover song because it's not that important. It's kind of a fun thing to do, a throwaway thing to do. And then we try a bunch of stuff and we immediately kind of see which ones work in our style, which ones don't. And this one was one of those that just kind of, it just flew. It felt right. It felt natural. So we did it and we recorded it and we were happy with it. So we stuck it on the album.
Was the filming of the music videos the first time the four of you really got together after the pandemic lockdowns?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, we were kind of lucky in that we went and did it last November. So we flew out to Greece for a week to do videos. So there's still a couple coming, right? So we did four videos over there within the space of like 5 6 days. So we worked a lot. But it was one of these things where I think like the day after we flew back home, they locked all the airports down again. It was one of these roll the dice kind of things, and we decided to do it this way, and thankfully it worked out. So we were kind of lucky in that way.
The album's coming out in multiple formats, streaming,
Mhm.
CDs, vinyl, some excellent looking vinyls that you guys have out there. And you got box sets and bundles. It's certainly more of a fan friendly thing to do. Is that your idea or the record label's idea?
It's kind of a combination, right? I mean, it was very much our idea to have a broad spectrum of stuff so that everybody can kind of enjoy it. The label loves doing LP and loves doing exclusive things with LPs, doing different kind of colored versions and stuff anyway. Although I personally am a fan of the black gold, right? The 180 grams of black flipping vinyl. That's the best stuff. But the box set was very much Leah's idea, to have a sort of a laser engraved, like a cool thing that you can always kind of have around the house. And then all the little goodies inside are more stuff for like festival season, for the camping rock and roll fan. Little gadgets and some bags and bits of merch and bits of memorabilia and stuff. So yeah, we love doing that kind of stuff. The only thing we haven't done is cassette, for all you 90s people who are tape nostalgic, which I am. I grew up with tape. So we don't have tape yet. Maybe next release, right? No, or next reissue.
I don't understand
Yeah.
the whole tape thing, mainly because who's really got a cassette player? Where can you get a cassette player?
That's the thing. I think we still have one in the attic or something, but I used to have it in the car, right? When I was
Yep.
still driving buckets from 10 years, 15 years ago or whatever, when you'd buy used cars. But yeah, these days I really don't. I actually, this is the funny thing because I like, I'm a musician. I get around. I've guested on a few things over the last few years, and they then appreciatively send me some stuff, and I've been sent some cassettes with my work on as well, and I've just never been able to listen to it. I gotta like find a guy, who has one where I can hang out and listen to my own cassettes. Yeah.
So, Rock of Angels Records. The members of Devil's Train has been on the label in different bands throughout the years and stuff like that. So I gotta ask, are you a part of the ownership and management at that label?
Oh no, not at all. No, 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 no. This was nothing to do with us. No. The label is over in Greece as well, so they definitely help facilitate the videos and so on and so forth. And the owner is a good friend. They I'm just gonna say are. They still are a young and up and coming label, but they're very much into melodic rock and into more melodic forms of metal. They don't have a lot of core. They don't have a lot of death metal bands, if any, at all. They're very much into new wave of British heavy metal and hard rock and AOR and whatever you want to call all these genres. My old band Monument was on this label for years and years, and Mystic Prophecy, which is Leah's other band, has been for a couple of releases now on this label. And this is how we know each other as well. It's a smaller label, and so it's more of a family vibe. Everybody knows everyone, and they kind of do their own festival and that kind of stuff and connect everybody. And we're a family, and it's nice because I prefer it to being on these huge labels where you're one of 2,000 bands and you get the same deal and package as everybody else, but you're not really looked after in that way. So here I really feel like I'm in good hands.
Do you have touring plans, speaking of festivals?
Well, we'd love to. The thing is, because we wanted to kind of surprise the fans with this release, we didn't want to announce it way, way in advance, like a year in advance or something. So we only announced that the band was active maybe like March of this year, April of this year. So naturally, all of the festivals this year, this season, are already booked up because they've basically moved lineups back a year or two now, haven't they? So there hasn't been much space anyway. So we've been getting lots of offers, but it's more for 23, 24. So we'll definitely be out and playing, but it's probably not going to be this year. It's going to be next year and going forward. And we'll do a bunch of festival stuff probably. I don't know about touring yet. I don't know if we'll be outside of Europe. We'd love to come to the States and play, or Canada and play. We've had a few offers, but we just got to see what works for everybody and their other commitments at the moment. But if you're on the socials, you'll see stuff as soon as it comes in and gets released. So.
Last year, you released Dan Baune's Lost. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah,
Dan,
100%.
Dan Baune's Lost Sanctuary. It was a self-titled
Yeah,
release,
man.
also on Rock of Angels. So that
Mhm.
music's a little bit different than what you're
Oh
doing
yeah.
with Devil's Train, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's so hard I hate putting labels to my own stuff. I'm going to ask you, what would you say it is,
Power metal.
Power metal. That's interesting, because a lot of people say this, and to me it's yes, it is power metal, but when I think power metal, I think of Stradivarius and I think of bands that have a happier sound. I tend more towards calling it melodic thrash metal or something because it's like it kind of has very heavy elements, but it definitely has clean singing as the main event. So yeah, it's definitely heavier than Devil's Train or more of a metal thing.
Is that something that you could play smaller, intimate shows on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this record, when we kind of did it again, I did pre-pro for it in 2019, and then when I moved back here, and it was time to record the record, the lockdown happened, the first one, the second one. So we basically did it as a duo. It was me and my friend, the drummer, because we weren't able to go out find other musicians. Kind of, it was hard to do. So we kind of, we did the best we could in the situation. We said, let's do it as a duo and get a bunch of guest musicians. Why don't we do that? So we got a bunch of guest singers. We got Doogie White. We got Raz from Diamond Head. We got some really cool people involved, which was kind of fun for me as well, because it was the kind of thing I've always wanted to do. And, when you're in bands, it's never kind of possible, so it was just nice to get friends who I've always admired, and we've always loved each other's work, and we see each other ships in the night on tour or at festivals or whatever, but we never get to work together, right? So it was great to get a bunch of people on board. But yeah, since about Christmas time, so about half a year now, I've got a lineup together to go and play live, and we've got some shows coming up. We're doing stuff in the fall. But we're going out. We're going to play. We're going to play as a four-piece. I sing and play guitar. I have a fantastic bass player, guitar player with me now, and my friend Basti who plays the drums. So the four of us go out and we do club stuff. We do festivals, you know, here in Germany and Central Europe mainly at the moment. But, you know, we're looking to expand, of course, and we're working on a new record we've got 7 songs or something written already. So probably this winter we'll head back in the studio and do some new shit, man.
You mentioned Doogie White being on the album, fantastic vocalist for Rainbow and many, many others. How did you end up meeting Doogie White?
Yeah, man. So I have to thank my friend Chris Dale for meeting Doogie White. Chris Dale introduced me. So Chris was the bass player for Bruce Dickinson in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and he was in Tank for a while, which is also like more of a, you know, you could call it power metal or thrash or anything in between, I suppose. But Chris does a lot of tour work, a lot of teching, a lot of roadieing, and he was out, I think, with Schenker when Doogie was singing for Michael Schenker. So that's, I think, how those two know each other. Sorry, Chris, if you've known each other for much longer. Maybe they've known each other for, I don't know. This is just why I know they worked together on those tours, you know? So, yeah. And initially, I wanted to get Chris to play on this album as well because he's a great friend. We played in Monument together from time to time. But he's not the kind of guy who has a home recording setup. So, and as soon as the pandemic hit, you know, we didn't want to fly. We didn't want to risk anything. He has kids, you know. So we played it safe. And unfortunately, he was not able to contribute this time. But hopefully on the next run.
You mentioned them a couple times. Monument, it was a band that you were a part of from 2014-ish to 2018-ish. What happened to Monument?
Yeah, man. It just, it's one of these things that just several people decided they were unable or unwilling to continue doing it at this time, including the founder of the band and lead singer of the band. So it's one of these things where it was a shame at the time, sort of 2019, it sort of fizzled out for the time being, and then the pandemic hit, so it couldn't have done much anyway in that time. But yeah, it is what it is. It wasn't my decision at the time. I was sad about it at the time, and we did discuss should we continue with new members, and we just decided no, it didn't feel right, and it would be disrespectful to the people who were unable to contribute at that time and who were really emotionally invested in the band, let's say. So I don't know if it's ever going to come back. It's not in my hands, you know, but for the time being, I'm doing other stuff. I'm keeping busy.
Are you working on any other projects right now besides your solo stuff and Devil's Train?
So I'm building a big recording studio over here at the moment. So that's kind of my main project. And I've always been doing, you know, for the last 10 years or so, I've been doing a lot of production work, a lot of remote stuff, mixing, mastering, even recording, session work kind of stuff. So I'm always busy doing that kind of stuff. And I'm working on a couple records at the moment, actually. But actually, now the main thing is I really want to get the studio finished this year so I can start recording drums here and doing proper productions over here.
Well, that's all the questions I have for you today, Dan. The album is Ashes and Bones by Devil's Train. It comes out June 24th. It's a fantastic album. I love it. I'll be picking up one of those funky vinyls pretty soon myself.
Nice one. George, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks for having me, man. And thanks for promoting the album. We will look forward to this release, and we hope we can come over and play for you live.
Once again, I want to thank Dan Baune of Devil's Train for coming on the Rock is George podcast. Be sure to check out their latest album, Ashes and Bones. It drops on June 24th through Rock of Angels Records. Give it a stream on your favorite streaming platform. If you like what you hear, make sure you go out and buy a copy of the album. Support the artist. For all things Devil's Train, check out their Facebook page at facebook.com/Devil's Train. Also want to thank Dustin Hardman of Hardman Promotions and Rock of Angels Records for making this interview possible. You've been great. I've been George Dionne. I'll see you again soon.